Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Locke and Key Season 2, Episode 6. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Immediately picking up after the events of last episode, we have Kinsey opening the door, and Gabe's like, oh, what happened with Duncan? Oh, his memories didn't come back. Oh, yeah, like, should I be here? It's like, oh, no. And you even have Tyler come through the door like, nah, man, this is kind of a family thing, so it's okay. And then, like, you notice that Gabe looks down and sees the Hercules key and belt on Tyler. And it's like, yeah, we're not sure if we're going to need the extra muscle. So it just kind of sends him away. And Gabe's kind of feeling a little off about it, but it's mainly because he's thinking like, nah, like it had to have worked in some shape or form. But now it's like Kinsey's like racking her brain around it. It's like now they all know, like, right, he's Dodge, and it's just like this all has been a lie and manipulation. And just like Kinsey, more so than anything, it's like because she feels duped. It's like I was in a relationship with this person thinking they cared about me, and like to find out the whole thing was a lie. And then you have Bodhi showing up talking about the news, you know, the last piece to the puzzle. Right, there were two Dodges. It's like, wait, then Dodge had the identity key, so the only other person that could have been is Ellie. And now they realize, and like Tyler says, I killed Ellie. Like, it hits him the most because they all took part in it, which sucked, which we don't know if she's dead. She's just potentially trapped on the other side, or maybe this could get extra dark and she is dead, because Bodhi doesn't talk about it, but it's like, right, that means his best bud's mom is dead, and that's on, like, you know, that was on them. But also it's like, you know, Aaron and Duncan try to make them feel better because, like, you couldn't have known, but like, especially because Tyler's the one that pushed her away at the, like, he's probably going to feel the most responsible for what happened to her. It's like, so what are they going to do with this knowledge of, you know? And at the end of it, they're trying to figure out, like, you know, why? What was the purpose? Like, I mean, for one, it's like, this bastard's been over to our house the entire time. We willingly let him in. But it's like, what is he up to? Like, what was he planning? And then Kinsey thinks back to, like, right, he asked me one thing. Could I, like, how do we know where the keys come from? Do we know how they were made? And then it pieces together, right. That's why he's been so fixated on Duncan. He needs Duncan to make a new key. So now the mission becomes, we got to protect Duncan, not letting Gabe or Eden know that his memory's gotten restored. But it was kind of this neat little moment between Duncan and Bodhi, where Bodhi was like, do you regret getting your memories back with all this stuff? And for him, it's like, Dodge is after me, so I'd rather know than not know, because at least I can see it coming. So there's good and bads tied with, like, getting his memories back. But then all of a sudden he hears the keys. He's like, whoa. And I love that. It's like, it's neat seeing him and Bodhi run after the keys. They're like, he's like, dude, he's like, oh my God, I didn't realize, like, how much I missed this. And I love that. It's like, oh man, here's all these cassette tapes. It's like, oh, he's like, oh yeah, Bodhi's like, those are those old things that, he's like, yeah, I know, iPod? He's like, yeah, it's something like that, buddy. You're like, oh my God, because I'm old enough to remember cassette tapes. It was kind of neat just seeing, like, Duncan had, and I think that's also, I brought it up before of, like, I think if anyone other than Duncan can make a key, it's going to be Bodhi. And I think in that moment it showcased, like, all that wonderment, that childlike wonderment that both him and Duncan have at that moment, them hunting down that key. But they find a key, which Duncan's like, I don't know what this key does. He's like, he thought he knew what a lot of the keys does, but this is one he doesn't know. And Aaron claims later on, like, not to know what it is either. But it's like a chained key, and it's like, I wonder what it does. But obviously, Tyler, Kinsey, and Bodhi go to the Winterfest because they have to pretend like everything's fine because they don't want to draw, you know, too much attention to make it seem like it's not. Obviously, I think it was pretty well, because there's a conversation about the whole, like, you know, Gabe and Eden about, like, right, what do we do about, like, Duncan? Like, it was supposed to work, but it didn't. It's like, well, you can always get Kinsey, why don't you just go over there and go back to what you were going to do? It's like, right, but not all the Locks can make keys. Duncan's the only surefire, and we have one last whispering metal, so we don't want everyone to know that we've got, like, we don't want to waste it on potentially using Kinsey, who could maybe make us a key, where we could get Duncan, who can guarantee to be making us a key. So But I love that Eden's mom shows up. I was like, oh, that's interesting. We just kind of got a peek at her last episode, and now she's actually here. Turns out later on, she confides in Eden, like, oh, yeah, like, your dad's having an affair. And all this, she's like, oh, you should kill him. No, seriously, it will make you feel so much better. And Eden's mom's like, thank you for being there for me, Eden. It's like, it's sadly, I'm curious how the real Eden would have taken that news about, like, oh, her dad having an affair. I'm like, I don't know. We'll never know. You know, because obviously it's the demon, like, with her memories and her personality, but also just doing its own thing. So it just makes you wonder how the real Eden would have responded to that. But it's like her mom appreciated that response. Because you can tell it was still a little bit of that thing of just kind of like, I guess Eden always presents that aspect of like, right, I don't want to kind of be bothered with you, Mom. She's like, right, you want to get rid of me sooner. But it's like, she's known for a couple months about the affair. And just, I guess she was just waiting for the right time to try and tell Eden. And this kind of happened to be the perfect time, I guess. But, obviously, it's a situation of we don't want to tell all the people around us about Eden and Gabe, because the less people that knows, the more likely he's not to find out about, you know, what we're up to. So everyone kind of splits up. Obviously, Kinsey goes to see Scott and it's like, right, knowing what they know now, and it's just like having to pretend like everything's okay. But Scott's like, right, if no matter what it is, just know that, you know, I'm here. So she does like a tattoo booth. And once again, just that thing of like, anytime I see adorable little kids, I'm like, it brings that out of me when I'm like, oh, you're so adorable. That little girl who got like a butterfly on her face, I was like, that little girl is so adorable. I was like, I just want to hug you, you little bundle of joy. Like, I get like that sometimes. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I have to remind myself sometimes. I was like, yeah, I get those little like flare-ups. I'm like, I kind of want kids. But then I'm also like, yeah, you have other reasons why you don't want to have kids, you know? So you don't want to screw your kids up just as screwed up as I am. For no one's fault but my own. I've just got so much like self-loathing and no lack of self-esteem that I'm like, yeah, I got too much on my plate on personal issues that ever like be in a position to raise a kid. I'd never want any kid to have to deal with my bullshit or like have to like carry on any of my bullshit. Regardless, going to go with tangent. But Gabe showing up and like, oh, hey, I want a tattoo too. And it's like, oh, like a lobster, like, you know, my character from the movie. And he kind of pinches her. Like, and she's like, ha. Because when he first showed up, she scared the crap out of him. She drops him. So it's like, gotta pretend like everything's okay, everything's fine. I mean, she does it enough that like, even when he was like, oh, like, he won't shut up about Duncan. It's like, once again, a lot of that stuff's oblivious. Like, you don't really think too much. It's like, I mean, I guess that's just your concern. But now it's like, no, I know what your now it's like, oh, can we just drop the subject? That's within enough range where it's like, right, I can see it's bothering you, so I won't talk about it anymore. But it's also like, no, it's just from the perspective of like, last thing I need you to do is talk about my uncle, because I know the only reason why you're concerned about him is because you're trying to use him. You have the sad situation with Bodhi and Jamie where Jamie knows something's up because Bodhi's distracted, but he can't tell her what's up because they were like, yeah, don't tell Jamie, even though she's his friend and trusted. But she ends up grabbing his book bag and goes into the maze, and it's like, you know, because she was just like, either you tell me what's up and then like, or I go into the maze and I take your bag. It's like, super not cool. I get she was just having fun. Like, she didn't realize like the dangers of what was going on at the time. If Bodhi had been able to tell her, she would have been a little bit more on defense. I mean, a little bit more receptive to him being like, no, I'm not here to play games. It's like, you know, because that's also the sad thing too, because I think because of everything that's going on, Bodhi does have to grow up at least a little bit faster. But aside from all of this, Erin was packing up her stuff because she contacted the bank and it's like, yeah, like her money's going to come through. So she plans on getting a place in the mountains, but it's just like, no, I'm not going to leave Matheson. And because for her, it's like, I have to stick around, like not while Dodge is here, but you know, you have Duncan be like, no, this is our fight. You don't have to be a part of this. But for her, it's like, I'm one of the last keepers, so it's a part of me. But he's like, no, just go off and live a good life. Be happy. You know, and he hugs her. And she kind of sneaks away with the key because I was like, what is she up to? And it's like, turns out, and she left a note to Duncan. As the last keeper of the key, like, it's like, as the last official member, I have to be the one to carry on this torch. I have to end this. I have to deal with Dodge once and for all. And just, you know... And it's sad that, but she felt like, because this all started with them, and it's like no one else is alive to, like, it's like she doesn't want it to fall on them. Like, if she can end this, she wants to end it. Because initially I was thinking the chain key, I thought what was going to do was, I was like, could it be used to separate the human from the demon? Now, granted, Dodge's situation, once again, you're an echo. There's no separating that, even if you could. I thought what's going to happen is it could be used on Eden, but it turns out that's not what the key is for. The key actually is used on a Locke, and that Locke shoots out a whole bunch of chains. It's like restrain someone. At least that's how it appears. Like, we don't know if there's like any other flip side to it, or whether it has like a dual like potential for it. But it just seems like it's just mainly used for restraint. But kind of worst place to kind of have to be dealing with something like that. Just because of the whole May situation, because it's that panicking moment of like, who's going to run into who, because like everyone's going everywhere. I have to circle back a little bit and talk about the situation with Jackie and Tyler. Tyler, like, you know, now that he has the memory key, he wants to restore Jackie's memory. So he's like, what do you remember about our trip to Bath? And she's like, yeah, I remember pieces of. He's like, do you want to remember it all? And he showcases like the matchstick key. He shows it off and he's like, yeah, this is magic. She's like, is all magic like beautiful like that? And he's like, yeah, but it can also be terrible too. And she's like, so if I do remember it, I'm going to remember the good and the bad. And he's like, yeah. And she says, because of that, no. And he's like, come on, Jackie. Like, no, it's fine. Like, but she was like, no, like, she doesn't want that if that's the case. Because, like, especially because, like, once you know, you'll forever know. And it's just like, especially with what's on the horizon, maybe it's for the better. But for Tyler, it's just like, because, I mean, it makes sense, too, because it's not only, like, well, all the memories of the specific stuff they've done together that's related to keys, like, disappear. That's also going to be a part of his life he's forever going to have to hide from her. Just like Randall had to hide that from their mom. Like, it's just like forever their relationship will always have a secret that he will never tell her, but can never tell her because she doesn't want that. And it's just like, it's always going to be some part of yourself you're going to have to hold back. Just like Randall did to not only the kids but also Nina as well. So that's kind of the sad like drawback to this whole situation. And so ultimately, like, Jackie's memory fades away and she's like, oh, what's this fire? Is it part of the Winterfest? And he's like, yeah. It breaks his heart just to know like she does, but he's also respecting her wishes of like not wanting that. But now, I mean, it hasn't come up, but the question is like, well, what about everyone else? What about the Savinis? Like, eventually that's going to become a conversation. I don't think it's reached them yet about like the magic thing. I mean, it hasn't come up yet, but eventually it might, whether they're going to want to know magic still exists. You know, Jackie's like forgetting. So I don't know if those conversations between like the Savinis and Jackie has really happened. Maybe if Eden was still around, it would be, but it's not Eden. It's the demon inside of Eden, which sadly said demon happened to catch a glimpse of Duncan showing up with the Anywhere key, so she immediately texts Gabe. They lied. Duncan's memory's fixed. He's here, and so it just becomes like this chase sequence of everyone trying to. Duncan's trying to find Aaron, who's here, who's looking for Gabe, while Tyler and Kinsey are in the maze looking for Bodhi, who Bodhi is tracking down Jamie, trying to get his phone in his bag. So once again, it's just a situation of like turning at the wrong time, everyone running into like not running into the right person. It's just like, oh, they were just like seconds away from running into each other. And when it's all said and done, though, Aaron finds Gabe, but and she uses the chain. She plans to drag him back to the well where he belongs, but because once he's back in the well, I mean, do they even know where the echo... Like, I'm curious, like, they probably have to find the echo key and use it again. Not unless he has the echo key, I'm not sure. But I don't know if you'd have to, like, put him in the well and then use the echo key again to make him disappear. Because the only reason why he was able to get out is because of the Anywhere key. So, if you put him back and not without the Anywhere key, he can't do anything. So I'm curious like how that would work, like would just like locking him in there, because like the other option would be like going to the black door, but they already made that mistake once. And also like you leave too much liability open for like, you know, because it's like they could easily take advantage. So it's like the well is the best chance and the easiest chance without opening the black door. But sadly, Eden showed up and knocked Aaron out. And Lucas starts choking her, and she's like, Lucas, I know you're still in there. And she's like, Lucas, and despite everything, he starts choking her, and he breaks her neck. And you're like, I was hoping they would be able to get to her in time, but they couldn't. And the thing is that surprised me, if you look at Eden, Eden's almost like shocked. I'm like, you've killed people, yet for some reason this like shocked you to your core. And even to the point like Gabe had to be like, like it took a lot out of him to do it. It's like, because I think now it is the point that they've been human for so long. I definitely feel it with Gabe, but I think maybe it's starting to happen with Eden, that they've been in these human bodies for so long that like humanity's starting to break through and take over to some extent. And the sad thing is too, like, Gabe used one of the keys to like make the earth drag her body down, so like they can't even like, they'd have to probably like go digging deep to find her body. But it's like, that's such a shame they don't even get to like, because no one's going to know that she's dead. They'll probably have to make it seem like, yeah, she just left on her own, like, because Nina's probably going to be asking questions like, oh, where did Aaron go? And it's such a shame, because even at the end they're like, why did she do that? Like, why'd she feel the need that she had to be the one? It's like, because she was the last keeper. She felt like it was her duty to, because she felt like this was their mistake to clean up, and she didn't want, like, Dodge has already caused so much pain for them, but also to Rendell's kids. I think she felt like she owed it to Rendell's family, like, because none of the other keepers are here to carry on this torch. Is like, it's up to me. And that was the other thing too for Duncan. It's like, you spent 20 years in your own head. Like, you have every right to go out and live your life, and and it's sad. And I think for her it was just like, no matter what the cost, she wanted to make things right, and it's heartbreaking. I was like, oh man, that sucks, dude, that it ended this way, because Aaron was an ally and a friend. Nothing but good, because she tried to like, because it's interesting because it ties into the Jackie stuff, but Aaron's the one that was like, oh, get rid of the keys, like they cause more harm than good. And Jackie was like, oh, there's the beautiful stuff, but there's also the terrible stuff as well. So there's also, because obviously you have the whole situation with God, what's his face, Josh, who brings it up to the students like, oh, if anyone knows where my special artifact is, then I will not like get on anyone's case. Just return it to me. He got an email or something for someone being like, oh, I know who has your artifact. When I'm like, I wonder who could have done that, because none of like Duncan nor any of the Locks know about him having that. So the only people who would know would be like Eden. So I'm not sure if she's trying to take advantage of that, or like someone else does. Like, what would be the point in that? Like, not let someone caught some surveillance footage. Like, it feels like someone's trying to manipulate him and push him to get mixed up on this. But I'm like, for what purpose? I'm not sure. I don't see what not unless that is something like Gabe and them are setting up. But like, why would they? I don't know what to make of that 100%. What that means. Like, who could have sent that? We'll have to wait and see what that ends up turning out to be. But other than that, you have everyone like, all of the Locks just in dismay about just like everything that went down. And for them, it's like, no, we have to end this once and for all. So you have the Gabe and Eden situation. It was like, see, Eden's like, because Duncan was there and he knew his memories were back, that means your girlfriend lied to you. And then like, but Gabe's like, nah, there's no way. Kinsey would never lie to me. She's like, just admit it. You got played. It's like, you're up here trying to play her and she played you back. And just like, and he's super butthurt about the like notion that it might be the case. But the moment she's like, hey, I got some great news. When Kinsey calls and is like, oh, I got great news. Duncan's memory is like, it did? Yeah, it just came back a little at a time. He doesn't remember everything, but it's like, oh, okay, good. And he's smiling because he's happy, because it's like, yes, Duncan's memory is back and we can take advantage of it. Plus, Kinsey didn't lie to me. Oh, we're so good. It's like, he doesn't realize like how much it is no longer just a game of manipulation. He legitimately has fallen for her now. The Grinch's heart has grown 3 times its size. But the apt comparison I made last time was like a Beauty and the Beast situation. But Kinsey's leading Gabe into a trap, just being like, yo, meet me at the house tomorrow, you'll get to see it firsthand. So I'm like, well, because he ended up picking up the chain key, so he has that. Plus, we don't know all the keys that Gabe has, but if he's unsuspecting, like, you'll be able to catch him off guard. But what they'll do beyond that, like, I guess there is the well house situation, but it's like, what do you do about Gabe? I mean, because Gabe is, to be fair, it's like, what do you even do about the Eden thing? Because Eden is like still Eden, even though she's possessed. At least with the Lucas thing, it's like, well, he's an echo. He's not even like a real human, So, and it's not like Gabe is a person that got possessed like Eden. It's like Gabe doesn't exist, So, I'm curious to see how they end up ultimately handling all of that. Because Gabe does have that chain key, I think it's going to be a lot easier to grab Duncan and drag him off somewhere. He does also have the music box key, so he would have to like make sure he grabs the music box if he wants to force Duncan's hand, but not unless he ends up taking one of like the siblings, like Tyler, most likely Bodhi, or Kinsey as a hostage. I'd assume Bodhi, but taking one of them hostage and forcing Duncan's hands in that regard. So we'll see how this all plays out. They do currently have him at a disadvantage because he thinks like all things are good between me and Genji. We'll see if that stacks up. But now it's got to this point. I wonder, are they just going to keep it within themselves, or are they going to get everyone else's help too? Kind of similarly to last time. We'll ultimately have to wait and see where everything takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.